Okay, so that wasn't supposed to happen, but welcome to Hot Takes. To much fanfare, all of our sound effects went off all at once. Guys, thank you so much for being here. We've got a lot of OGs in the chat, some regulars, some new chatters too. And we're simulcasting to YouTube for the first time. Don't have the link handy, but anybody that is interested can actually jump on our YouTube. We're live over there too. So if you don't already know, Hot Takes, been around, episode 70, Vaporwave talk show, independent
wow, really?
art and music, 70th episode, 3rd season.
Crazy.
We like to discuss independent art and music with our friends and bring on a guest. Now, tonight we have world-renowned city pop DJ and writer Van Paugam. Yeah. Incredibly well-known and incredibly accomplished DJ and curator Van Paugam. We're incredibly excited to just get to the bottom of Van's likes and dislikes. It's going to be a good time. So thank you guys for being here. Just a couple reminders, please. No punching down, but punching up is not only okay, but actually encouraged. Just keep it kind in the chat. No sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia. You know the drill. Just be kind. And then, of course, we have our commands. But first, any emojis that you use go on the screen. So blow up those emojis. We'll be holding all questions to the top of the hour. And the commands that you can use are comp, where you can check out the Hot Takes Volume 1 compilation. Discord, where you can jump in our Discord server. That does not spell Discord. Let's try that again. Donate, where if the spirit moves you, you are welcome to donate to the show. And all donations go towards... you know what? That's something I got from you, actually.
I'm so honored.
Yeah. Wouldn't cast any aspersions towards that phraseology.
That's aspersions. So. That's another one.
The follow button allows you to follow our socials as Hot Takes, and then, of course, Skelly and Shiro let you follow us individually. Vapor Aid will allow you to watch the uncut, full Vapor Aid live stream that was curated by Quiz, and Shirt. These are all exclamation points. Shirt lets you check out the official Vapor Aid t-shirt. Pretty cool. Got one myself. I'm a little bit of a fan. It's got my name on it, But anyways, I think that about sums it up. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to start tonight with some recommendations. Vapor link's not working. Damn, we'll fix that. Thanks, Lux. Got some good recommendations for you guys tonight. So I've been sitting on about a month's worth of good material. I want to talk about... I'm going to start with the stereotypically like Vaporwave recommendations and then kind of go kind of like in the weeds. There's a little known kind of like late night lo-fi Vaporwave artist called Midnight Premiere, and I feel like maybe like I've been listening to a lot of classic Vapor for a long time, and I'm getting pickier. I'm just like
you texted me this.
I did.
Recently.
You can only slow down the whispers so many times. And you know what? When you hear somebody who's fresh and new on the scene with a fresh, fun new way of chopping and flipping stuff, it's just nice. And I'm not saying anybody does a bad job. I'm just saying I'm picky. And when I heard Midnight Premiere's variety pack, it's not even a cohesive album. It's a selection of like singles, I guess, and B-sides, and almost every one of them just slaps. Like, just very great sample choices. They don't necessarily do as much with the samples as I would like. A little bit more like a curator as opposed to like a chopping and looping. But some of the flips they did were just really moving. And there's one in particular that is a flip of new editions. I believe it's "Sorry You're Not My Kind of Girl," or some shortened or longer version of that title. Which is a great song, and he does this flip where he just kind of like hides the sample for like a fat 3 to 4 minutes, and then all of a sudden it just busts out with the refrain, and it's just an incredibly effective use of a sample. That particular track is the second track, I believe, and it is called. Is it the second track? Midsummer Nights, I think. The intro track, Stepping In, is also really good. I actually used it to close a set that I did for Vaporspace recently. So definitely check out Midnight Premiere's Variety Pack if you want to hear what I think is some of the better classic Vapor and late night lo-fi. And then with another kind of Vaporwave recommendation, Late Arcane has been making a lot of waves in the scene. If you haven't seen Late Arcane play live, it kind of reminds me of Blank Banshee with how quickly they move with that MPC, or I'm not very knowledgeable about hardware, but it's a big grid, so that thing. Just triggering everything almost perfectly on beat. I don't know how they do it. Launchpad.
Late
Thanks,
Arcane
Lux.
is really something else.
Late
I've
Arcane.
watched a few. They're really something else.
They're really some. Thank you for
something really interesting.
They're quite good at what they do.
I played on one of his live streams for a release.
Nice.
I
can't
one of his live streams.
Can't praise Late Arcane enough, man. Not only are they really good at making their samples kind of pop in an emotional way, they do a lot of chopping. They're early.
He's a really talented producer.
Very talented. Very nice person too. I've always enjoyed speaking with them. Lux already knows what I'm going to recommend. She already linked a pre-business casual album called FAO Niles Redacted. Strange title. Not really sure what they were going for there, but it seems to have kind of a little bit of a lore behind it that maybe I'm just not knowledgeable about it. But what I love about Late Arcane, especially pre-business casual Late Arcane, is it sounds like shoegaze, man. It sounds like if Vaporwave made shoegaze, and Soft Replica kind of did that a little bit, to great effect in my opinion. But damn if Late Arcane doesn't do it incredibly well. And speaking of Replica, there's a track on this album called Replica that's just stupid good. It literally sounds like an early 90s shoegaze song. So if you like Vaporwave or shoegaze, and you haven't yet, checked out FAO Niles Redacted by Late Arcane. And then I'm going to follow that up with one last recommendation. And this is a little left field. It's a well-known dark synth artist that isn't as famous or popular as Carpenter Brute or Perturbator, or however you want to pronounce his name. But there is an artist that's been in the scene for an incredibly long time that has had a lot of themes running for a while, with a lot of callbacks to some of their older work, and I feel like is one of the only people that's keeping their sound font fresh in that cyberpunk and dark synth kind of synthwave scene, because it's been going for a little while. It's gotten a little stale. Mega Drive is constantly changing their synth palette.
Mega Drive. I know how much you love Mega Drive. I knew that's what you were gonna say.
I got a physical copy of 2000X.
You put me onto them a long time ago, and I remember the first time I heard them, I'm not sure if I like this, but then I realized that this is actually the best music.
You know what? I'm really glad. I mean, Perturbator's violent. Carpenter Brute is stylized. Mega Drive just keeps it fucking fresh. Now, they may have some formulas that they use, but they change the sounds up. It's a different sound. And 2000X AD is a reference to a string of albums they've done with 1980X AD and 1990X AD, where they've just kind of had a theme. And it just calls back to those albums in an incredibly effective and fulfilling way, especially at the end of the album. You got to check out 2000X AD by Mega Drive and check out the song Black Katana, at least, and the outro track Memoria, especially if you're already a fan. That's what I got. What's the hot take for tonight, Skelly?
Hot take tonight. Okay, so we've got a gentleman coming on today who I'd love to get, I'm very excited to ask him about how he's navigated his career, because one of the things that happens when you're getting into performing live and working at venues and promoters and collaborators is you got to be careful with who you decide to work with. Everybody is friendly and nice when you're there, and you can do something for them. And when you start doing stuff live, you kind of get very excited when you get a little bit of momentum. And you do want to work with a lot of people, but it's really important that you vet the people you work with. They might seem friendly or this on the surface, but just look into them. See what their relationships have been like with previous people they've worked with. Now, there's always going to be one person or something that they maybe had a problem with and no longer work with them. But if you notice a pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4 previous partners or groups that they've worked with and it didn't work out, stay away from them. You know what I mean? That means that there's something wrong with those people. And honestly, most of the time, those people that have issues with a lot of people usually are not very talented. They usually don't have much to offer. And I'm going to quote our buddy George right now. Once told me that it's a powerful act. Creation is a powerful act, but so is destroying. And those people who can't create and don't really have talent to create, they'll just destroy. And that's a powerful act, and that's the way that they're going to try and progress themselves. And just look into those people, stay away from them, and if they start giving you trouble, don't give any oxygen to the fire. Let the garbage wash itself back into the gutter. It always comes back. And so be careful who you work with. You know what I mean? Just look into that. And, I'm very interested to talk to our buddy coming on in a moment and to figure out how he navigated his career and how he figured out the people to work with and how he's handled it. So shall we bring him on soon? We've got Van Paugam.
Tell us a little bit about Van Paugam.
What can you say about him? This man is a successful DJ, a pioneer in the world of bringing city pop to the States and kind of the resurgence of it. In fact, I would say he's been an ambassador for it for a long time now, heavily involved in the early vaporwave and future funk scene. He's not only just a DJ, but also a tastemaker. You know what I mean? He's a culture critic, a tastemaker, extremely influential. And that's kind of what you want to be as a DJ. There's a lot of people who are DJs and they do their job, they come in, but the proper thing to be as a DJ is to be a selector. Obviously you have to have the skills and the talents to create moods and ambiance and move crowds, but it's also really like it's incumbent on the DJ to also be somebody who can comment on music, who can create, who can lead people. And I just don't think that there's many other people around that do as good a job as this gentleman right here. I mean, and he's been recognized for that throughout most of his career, honestly. So very excited to bring this guy on. Chicago's own and Paugam.
Go ahead and unmute yourself, dog.
Paugam. Sorry.
Thank you so much for those words. I'm extremely honored to be on, and I'm so flattered by everything you said. I don't really see myself as any of that, but it's.
Well, you're not going to see yourself
crazy.
out that as yourself. You've been on television, man. You've been in other countries. You've been on television. You've been on television, interviewed in different countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also I want to add, Van and I, if anybody did purchase the special edition Future Funk Flamingo, Bingo Funk Volume 2, the box set, the special edition, there was a special tape that came with it, and the side A was all the Future Funk songs that were put into a continuous mix by Van, and side B was all the Vaporwave songs put into a continuous mix by me. So,
Cool.
We have that in common too. So anyway, of course we never really, you have to be, people, you don't say it yourself, people recognize it though. So good on you and being humble, my friend. But anyway, how are we doing today?
Fantastic. It's great to be on. I know you guys been doing this for a while, so I was surprised to be asked to be on here. So it's a pleasant surprise, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you.
I want to kind of start asking you first. Music is such a big part of your life. It is the centerpiece of your career. But I want to know when this starts. What music reached you first as a kid? When was the first time you were listening to music, and it moved you to the point where like this is something that's going to be this is an art form that's going to be a big part of me for maybe my whole life. Like, what was the first music you were exposed to?
I mean, I'm old enough to remember being in my grandfather's car in like the early '90s, listening to like Mojo and like Daft Punk and things like that. And like old school '90s house. I lived in Miami at the time, so.
You're from Miami initially.
I'm from Miami.
All right.
But
really? Okay.
Now, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've always had that kind of connection to music, and I used to take like blank cassettes and put them in the tape player and like record radio segments. So I've always been making mixes, and I'm that old. So I've always been like keen to making mixes and like recording memories, and that's always been kind of like something that stuck with me throughout my entire life. But yeah, music early on.
I think it's very interesting that you put that as recording memories. So do you associate music with different parts of your life, different memories of your time? Like if you hear one song, does it bring you back someplace?
Yeah, I think, the neural connections in our brains are just wired to, connect the senses to certain memories. Nostalgia is such an important part of all of this. And, when I listen to a song, I remember exactly where I was when I was listening to it, or a pivotal moment in my life when that music kind of like resonated. And it brings me back to that moment, and it's just so charged and so powerful. And this is why music and like vaporwave and all these genres are so powerful when they resonate with so many people, because it helps us to kind of relive moments of our past, which is something that we can't do very often without the help of music. So
interesting. That's pretty cool. So the first music you were exposed to was the stuff in your grandfather's car. Was there any particular song or artist that you really felt like you connected to initially?
I mean, I loved house music. So back then, everything that was on the radio was like, a lot of.
They playing house music on the radio?
Music. Oh yeah, at least in Miami.
Miami. Miami. That's kind of very interesting to be incubated in Miami because during that time.
Oh, thanks
period.
for the donation, Roche.
Oh, so house music. That's interesting. That house music stuck with you first.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's something about the 808 and just the beat. When you're a young kid, it's just kind of like fun, and it just stays with you because it's like it's the rhythmic nature of house music is kind of intrinsic to the human kind of experience. It's like the heartbeat. It's just pounding, and it kind of draws you in. It's a very kind of primordial kind of sound almost. So I think when you're exposed to that to an early age, it sticks with you, because it helps you kind of connect to the moment, being in the moment. So
that's interesting because I think, and I talk to a lot of people, particularly a lot of artists and such. They don't really find house music right away. Usually a lot of times I talk to people, and the first music they're exposed to by their parents is not necessarily dance music. Do you know what I mean? Like I get, there's a lot of rock music. There's maybe even hip hop. But I don't get a lot of. I think you might be one of the first people I've talked to who got exposed to dance music at a young age.
House music.
People get to Daft Punk. I find that people get to Daft Punk. Because obviously they are just like they straddle that line between like the alternative music and and dance music. I don't really get to talk to too many people who were exposed to dance music very early and were able to connect to that. Usually people have to kind of get to that. So, did you listen to any rock music too, or was it mostly just dance?
I mean, I listened to anything that was on the radio. I was a kid, so I would listen to like
all the same
new wave, a lot of alternative from the '90s. All of that kind of influenced me. And I still kind of like all of that to this day. I don't think you stop liking any type of music because you get older. Your tastes get more refined, and you become more discerning in what you want to listen to. But the stuff that you were raised on never absolutely leaves you. It always stays with you in some kind of way or habitual kind of like longing for that sound. I think a lot of alternative back in the day. I mean, I remember Nirvana playing on MTV. Like I would watch MTV, which is nuts. Like
that's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's so interesting. This is true. I have a lot of music that like I grew up with and I always love. I don't always go back to it, but it's still a part of me. You know what I mean? Like I might not listen to it all the time, but I remember the feeling of listening to it, and that's like a big part. And I think that goes back to what you're saying about the nostalgia and being attached to the the different parts of your life being associated with different songs. So what were you listening to in like high school and stuff then?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this genre called electroclash. It was like
really
big,
like dance punk type stuff.
Like
Log House kind of.
Chicks on Speed, Miss Kitten.
Chicks on Speed, Miss Kitten.
Absolutely. I guess La Tigra you could put in there as well. I mean, I remember Electroclash was a thing for a second. And,
it was a kind of thing. Yeah, it was post like the Twin Towers falling. So like it was kind of a dark kind of sentiment and a lot of
aggressive
that was going around. A little bit, yeah. So
I mean, it's the more aggressive in politics,
but like sassy,
sort of like,
not like
violent. Yeah, sassy.
Yeah, you can say that.
Sure. Well, I mean, like, sure, like La Tigra, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
of course.
They have.
Oh my God,
that one Decepticon
still fucking slaps. That song comes on. I'm on the dance floor.
That label is fucking fantastic. I love that.
Was that Mr. Lady?
Mr. Lady, no. God, what was it? I can't think right now.
So come to me. It'll come in a second.
Well,
what was interesting about Electroclash too, and that's kind of a fun thing to mention, was that Electroclash wasn't just like about the music; it was also about the presentation. Like you got there was a whole,
it was the visuals.
There was an artistic feel behind it. You felt like it was a party. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it wasn't just
it was definitely
it was a party music. Visually. It was a party sonically, and so
like
that's
Death
kind
from
of
Above,
like
1979 type.
No, I wouldn't say
maybe
that.
but dancier.
Well, it's like it's a lot more female fronted too. You know what I mean? Like you could I saw Lady
Ladytron. Oh my God, that's a callback, dude. Like,
Ladytron made me want to buy synthesizers. They were using synthesizers long before anybody else was. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Well, the analog stuff. or Peaches, like Shiro, like Peaches would be
Yeah.
from that world as well.
Oh, there was this artist on 31G called Miss Violetta Beauregard that kind of sounded like a lot of that stuff.
I don't know them, but they sound like they would fit
just really like punchy and dancey, but like lady fronted and like kind of screamy.
It was something. It was like that music had like a lot of energy to it, artistically, visually, and sonically. So I remember hearing that music and it made me excited. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it reminded me of like new wave because it was kind of like a new wave of a rejection of guitars and a rejection of kind of like anything acoustic. It was kind of more synthesizer driven. It was kind of like a new order kind of revival, just like straight electronica.
For sure. Chicks on Speed literally had a song called "We Don't Play Guitars."
Yep, I saw them some show in Miami. Yeah.
Oh wow, them in Miami must have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, Art Basel. If anyone's ever familiar with Art Basel in Miami, it's like where
I've never had
all the hipster artists come, and it's pretty cool. Yeah.
How long were you in Miami for then?
I mean, I was born in South Beach.
Born in South Beach?
I was born in South Beach, unfortunately. But you live there long enough, and it's like it's being born in Disneyland because it's where people go to party. So like, there's no real connection to the culture because everyone's transient. Everyone comes and goes, and the people who were born there leave. I barely know anyone else who was born in Miami Beach, especially. So like,
I know, particularly your area.
Yeah, South Beach especially.
Oh, did that have an effect on the way that you the way that you I don't know, that you grew up and the way that you identify with music?
God, yes. Yeah, I mean, my grandfather taking my uncles when they were like, 18 to the club. So like, I would be in the car while we're taking them to the club, and they'd be listening to, "What Is Love" by Hathaway.
Nice.
Or,
damn, your
I
pops
remember all
was
these
badass.
things, and like, they just put the radio on, and that was what it was on the radio. So it's like, all right, they're gonna go to Club Madonna or whatever club in South Beach. So I just like kind of be, I was enthralled by all the people walking on the street, and like, it definitely made an impression on me, and it kind of set the tone for my later years of how I would relate to music and how I would see the world in a way. So yeah, it's very powerful.
You were literally incubated in like dance music and club culture. I don't think you had a choice but to become a DJ at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
which kind of like leads me to ask as to. Because there's kind of a lot to talk about with your career. Let's just get to when you actually decided you wanted to become a DJ or decided you wanted to get more involved in music. What was your first way of getting involved in music?
Oh, I mean, I like I said, I had always been kind of keen on making mixtapes when I was little. So making playlists, that evolved into making CDs for people. And once I got
were you that friend? Were you that friend that made the mix CDs?
The guy that would make you a mix?
Oh
fuck yeah, me too.
School and
that guy.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
I loved it.
Curate it.
And I would make sure to ask them if they listened to everything on that CD.
People that put you on are
number 5 on there. I mean,
and you want to be like, which one was your favorite? I want to know which one was your favorite.
Did you have like a bit of an encyclopedic knowledge of like the artist, the album, the release date? Were you already kind of tracking and cataloging the progression of music?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be at Virgin Records listening to the CDs, because back then, we would go to the record store or Virgin Records or whatever, and like actually listen to the CDs because they had like little machines that you could tap into. Yeah. So like I would memorize all these things because there was no other option for me, and like I got LimeWire later on in life, but it was a process. But making CDs and making sort of playlists that were based on mood and sentiment and feeling. This is what I connected to, and this is how I related to the world. So I would listen to music, and if it had lyrics or like melodies, chords, something that kind of like stirred me emotionally, I would want to put that on a CD, and that's what I wanted to kind of express to the world. So this is where the whole DJ thing came in, because originally, like, I never wanted to be any kind of spotlight. I've always been kind of introverted and very shy. So I didn't want to be like in the middle of the dance floor, like, some weird circular DJ booth. Like that kind of new interpretation of DJing caught me off guard. And at that time I was just like in the middle, like, off the side DJing. Like I wouldn't be part of the dance floor. I'd just be choosing tracks. And that's what I love to do. I love to pick music and see people's reaction. I love to see how people reacted to what I was playing, and if it moved them emotionally, or if it kind of like incited some kind of excitement. That was always the main purpose of me being a DJ. And that's why I'm still a DJ to this day. But, more and more I start to realize that, it's hard to break into someone and like affect them in a way that's meaningful nowadays. Like, especially at clubs, if you're a DJ, most people just go to drink or just, get messed up or whatever. And they don't really pay attention to the music like I used to, or like people that I grew up with used to. So yeah, I just always wanted to kind of
You got to go to the parties.
motivate people to.
I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who are familiar with your mixes, and you're reaching through. You're definitely still reaching through to people. I think the tough thing when you're a DJ, and particularly at your level, is, particularly if you're someone like you, is you're going to always focus on the people that are not paying attention. I think that's just that's the burden of all artists, is we focus on the people that we don't think we're reaching.
Yeah, the negative.
You're more sensitive to that criticism.
To reaffirm our doubts.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Very true.
It's funny too, because you mentioned like memorize, knowing all this stuff about music, attaching the emotions to it, putting it down on CDs. Do you find that music grounds you? You mentioned even like where you grew up, it's sort of feeling like a bit transient, like people coming and going. Do you feel like that being attached to the music helped ground you?
I mean, I think anyone who loves music finds it like something that ties us back to existence. Like, I think when we listen to music, it helps us go through whatever we're going through, or we listen to music that reaffirms whatever we're feeling, and that is a powerful thing in itself. And yeah, I find it incredibly grounding. And music is just probably one of the most probably magical things that are in the most mundane way, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, it's magic in a mundane way because it's something that everyone knows is so powerful and so affecting to anyone across any kind of language or any kind of country, whatever you live in. Melodies, chords, all of these things, they touch us to our most authentic kind of like feeling. I think music is that powerful. So yeah, I find it incredibly grounding. And whenever I'm feeling, depressed, which I always do, everyone feels depressed in these days. It's crazy times. But yeah, whenever I feel that way, I play something that reminds me of better times, or that, brings me back some kind of nostalgic feeling. And that, makes me, it charges me to keep going forward. And I think that's something that we should all kind of strive for. I don't know.
When did you get into
It's hard
DJing?
expressing.
When did you get into DJing? Like, when did you finally decide I'm going to become an active participant in this? I'm gonna curate. I'm not gonna just burn them CDs now, but I'm gonna broadcast it to people.
Well, I mean, you in Miami, it's hard not to bump into DJs, because I feel like DJing and nightlife is such a, it's part of Miami's culture. So like, you go out, you're gonna find someone who's DJ, because you throw a coin up, it'll fall on a DJ up there. So
right,
I did find someone who was like a really cool DJ, and he was my roommate for a while, and he got me into DJing on CDs and things like that. And his girlfriend lived with him at the time, and like they moved back to Chicago eventually, and like that's what kind of brought me to Chicago later on. But I mean, I always kind of knew I was gonna end up DJing, but it was almost just fate, having people kind of stoke that fire in me and try to support me and push me to that, because you always kind of find your way by someone either pointing you or I don't know, just kind of just being the person to introduce you to something, or open the door for you. That's always a part of how you find your way in life. I think sometimes people open the doors for you, and you just walk through, and you find your way. I think that's just a part of life.
What kind of music were you originally DJing? Like when you your first few gigs, like what did you do? What did you do first?
That was terrible.
Oh, I want to know
obviously, at some point, you're going to get to the point where you get to curate your stuff, and we'll get into like the city pop stuff and your introduction into vaporwave, future funk, city pop. But I want to know, like, what did you start with? Like, what did you have to? What music were you playing initially?
Top 40s. I mean,
Nice.
that was the way to like get into
you.
anywhere. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you got to take a bullet sometimes. And like I wasn't a huge fan of top 40s, but it's what paid the bills. You know, it's what got
Right.
money in your pocket. And you know, that's what made people happy. So like you play a song and you see people reacting, and that was, you know, part of what I, you know, found really fulfilling about DJing, that like you play a song and people react. You know, because you want to do something and you want to see reactions in people. You don't want to do something and nobody reacts, or people ignore it, or they don't care. You know, you play something, and then people start dancing and you're like, oh wow, okay, this has this effect. So I'm going to continue doing this because it, you know, it's fulfilling people, it's making people happy. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And but you know, after a while, you know, that grows kind of stale, and you're like, well, you know, I don't care if other people are happy. I want to make myself happy, because you know, as human beings, we start to realize that our feelings our contentment is important also. You know, so we want to play music that we like, but that other people are going to like also.
Oh yeah.
Probably one of the difficult things of being a DJ is easing people into something that you want to listen to that you think will be good for them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know it yet, right?
That's exactly true. You know, like you got to give them something that they want, and then mix something in that they might not know that they want what they wanted.
It's always kind of fun to like ask somebody like, "Hey, what's a song you really like, or an artist or whatever?" And be like, "Okay, bet. Here's something I think you're gonna like based on that." And like, if you're good, you're probably gonna be right. Like, they're probably gonna like it, or at least be open to it. You know.
Did you say that reading the room is one of the biggest skills you need to learn when you're getting into DJing?
I mean, yeah. I never have a playlist. I just go in and I go by the moment. I go by what I'm feeling.
That's a real DJ.
Oh yeah, hell yeah,
who's in the room? You know, how many people are in the room? What they're doing? If they're looking at me? If they're moving? All of that, you know, it gives you insight into what you should play next. And it's such a underappreciated skill, and it's something that
it's hard as fuck.
It is so fucking hard. You know?
I can't do it. I always have a crate.
I don't play in sets, but I also don't do long sets either. I always have a co-DJ, and we switch off every half hour.
I usually play 4 hours at a time, so it's like,
God damn, that's unreal. You're a real DJ, bud.
No, man, like he's got. I want to get into also like, when did you start with CDJs, or did you start with the controller, and then when did you actually get into doing vinyl? Because I know you did the vinyl
real
sets,
shit.
Crazy.
I mean, you know, in the mid 2000s when I started DJing, it was, you know, CDJs. And then when I got into City Pop, I started buying vinyl, and this is when I started actually playing it.
Okay, hold on, wait, pause for 1 second, because then we can get into the City Pop stuff too. Actually, I'm sorry. So you started getting the vinyl when you get into City Pop. How did you get into City Pop? Because you're way early on that wave. You know what I mean? Like people did not really start rediscovering that genre until the early 2010s, and I know that you were getting into it basically 2000s, mid 2000s. I want to ask you, how did you find that genre? Because it's interesting with hearing you talk, because you know you're clearly like you're discovering all this music, you're giving it to people, you're learning from other people, but I know that there's probably some drive inside you that's trying to figure out what the thing that speaks to you most is, and like you've been kind of crate digging your whole life, and then you come upon City Pop. Take me through that. When did that happen?
Oh, I mean, I had moved to Chicago in 2011, and before that, I was really big into chillwave, and I know a lot of people who are old enough realize that chillwave was the precursor to vaporwave. You know, like I was working at a record store.
We're all old here too. Me and are old. Yeah, are old.
You know, the older I get, I realize that, you know, oh shit, there's younger people. Whatever. I was working at this record shop.
Tell me about it. I can't believe it's crazy. There's young people that aren't me now. It's crazy. But anyway, so you got into chillwave.
So I got into chillwave, and the first chillwave song I listened to was MGM. No, it wasn't MGM. It was Neon Indians. The album was called Psychic Chasms. I was working at a record shop in South Beach, and it was Deadbeat Summer. And like I had never listened to anything like that before. I mean, I was aware of Beach House and like people who were using a lot of reverb on like guitars and things like that, but he was using so much reverb.
Shoegaze before that.
Oh, hell yeah. Sure. Like I liked M83 and like shit that was like blending 80s with stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
and, like,
I think that album.
Saturdays Equal Youth and Before the Dawn Heals Us.
that was one of my
definitely
a defining moment.
Yeah,
in my,
it was very exciting to hear that. I'm a bigger fan of Before the Dawn Heals Us, but they're both amazing.
I mean,
but hearing that album was like, you just combined pop sensibilities with like experimentation. You know what I mean? And that was crazy because like everything before that was pretty cleanly produced, dancey indie rock, which was great, and I was into it. But I was getting a little bit tired of Block Party sounds. Not that I don't love Block Party, but like everybody was doing that, and then all of a sudden they come in with this album, and I'm like, it was just like, and I was already familiar with shoegaze, I listened to that, but then like to take that sound and to make it so palatable and to combine with the pop sensibilities, and then that album cover was just so good.
Oh yeah,
it looked like a bunch of archetypes. So I'm excited to hear that was a big. So you've gone to that,
me too.
and then that's leading to other things, and now you hear the Deadbeat Summer song. And that's where we're at now. So then what happens?
I mean, Deadbeat Summer, it started a whole thing with chillwave, and that led me to Washed Out and Toro y Moi, and there was a lot of talk on alternative kind of platforms about like this style of music, and it was kind of my first taste of alternative genres that were kind of like unique to the time, because they were, I was listening to new disco at the time also, because there was a lot of like 80s revival disco going on. And like Australia,
we're in like the blog house era,
like
right
neo funk type stuff.
This was like the hipster era where like people were wearing ironic shirts for the first time, and like
a lot of American Apparel and Soul Wax remixes.
Oh my god, yeah, Soul Wax, holy shit. It's a throwback. But yeah, all of this stuff kind of like, it was a precursor to me finding Memory Vague in like 2011.
Oh
nice.
And Memory Vague,
No Tricks Play Never. That was crazy, man. When I saw those videos for like
it was nuts
and stuff.
Oh my, there's nobody here. That was the first, kind of one of the first songs I listened to. But on Pitchfork, Pitchfork used to be kind of cool before they got bought up by Condé
We remember
Nast.
too, yeah.
They used to be cool, and so they had this like satellite blog called it was called Outer Zones or something like that, and it would just feature stuff like games, which was the Poden back then.
Love games. That album.
Yeah, me
that
too.
Album, that EP was a huge.
It's a flawless fucking
games
EP.
we can play. Oh my god.
Yeah. I
Strawberry
fucking love that
Skies
shit.
and all the songs.
Strawberry Skies.
Laurel Halo doing the vocals.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
And that
but anyway,
CF remix.
Shadows in Bloom.
Oh.
But also like the idea of like the repurposing the music videos, and they would cut up the old commercials. I always found it fascinating to like take these commercials and like remove the portion where you're really advertising the product and you're just showing this distilled version of exaggerated emotions and joy and like wow, like I always thought the reactions of people in commercials were such a fascinating thing to just look at, you know what I mean? Without the product. So anyway, so you really, and the thing that was cool too was like this was new, you know what I mean? It was like be on the precipice of a new thing, you know what I mean? A new way of looking at stuff. So you were pretty inspired by this.
The new wave. It was a way for like people like me who were out. I always felt like I was an outsider, so I loved outsider music and music that wasn't part of like the top 40s paradigm of just like mindlessness and just people who didn't really care about this, just wanted to like dance and things like that. But I appreciate that sentiment also, but like there was so much thought into a lot of chillwave, and this is what led into the era of vaporwave, because a lot chillwave is the precursor to that. Like I'm not gonna skirt that, because it's definitely like the music style, the production quality, that all of that transferred into vaporwave. And I felt at the moment when I discovered it, like it was like this new kind of way to express yourself, this new attitude. It was like a punk kind of thing where like it combined cyberpunk and anti-capitalist kind of sentiments with like icons and iconography that was just like ancient like Roman kind of downfall things. And I feel like it was such a product of its time that today, like I don't like I just feel like it can't be reproduced, because it was such a thing that we were all tied to, and it was really strong. Like I definitely made an impact on my entire personality.
I've got some thoughts on why it can't really be reproduced as well. I want to get to that in a moment, but I do need to. I do want to, before we go off on that tangent, because we'll get to that. I just want to know when you got into the city pop stuff, and because you've been pretty lauded as one of the people who kind of ushered that wave of rediscovering that genre in, on many different media outlets, both in this country and other countries. So when did you start really getting into city pop?
I got it got into through vaporwave because I remember like hyper battle on like Reddit, and like people would make a lot of really cool remixes. It's hard to ignore that, but when you're listening to samples that you have no idea where they came from, and it just boggles your mind as someone like, where this sounds 80s.
Particularly
But
for you, who's been like studying music for so
that sounds
long.
vaguely
you know what
familiar.
I mean? To throw you off is a very interesting thing.
Yeah, it was because I've known all 80s music. Like I listened to all that through in the 90s, so like I was familiar with all of it, house music. So like it was like this, like, oh well, this sounds really familiar, and it kind of tickles my nostalgia kind of like senses. And I have no idea where it's from. Well, I know it's Japanese because it's Japanese language, but like where was it all my life? Like why it wasn't a part of my youth? So when you start digging for these records, and you start discovering these artists, and like it probably was in 2016 when I really started to like do some research and like email people and like go on Discogs and like talk to people. And for it to do that to me, because I've always been like reluctant to like interact with people. Because I've always been really introverted really early in life, and that carried on to many years later. For it to move me in that way, it was really powerful. And like, I remember first listening to these albums in their entirety, and it's like, whoa, okay, there was more to the 80s than I remember. Like I wasn't, aware that there's more stuff going on. Like, we're Americans, I think, most of us, and in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, it was really hard to find music from other countries that was like this in an easy way. Kids today are so fucking lucky because they don't
even care anymore. Like that's
the
problem
today.
They don't even care anymore.
Like, oh,
so
great,
the thing,
world music.
They don't. So this is gonna, because we'll get into the criticisms about all the stuff later in the second half. I want to just get through your career right now, but like just a really brief thing to say is like when the internet really started to get to its like more mature form, I guess in like the 2000s, was like all of a sudden it became a repository for not just my nostalgia. Like I could go back and I could find old music videos, old songs, old half-remembered commercials or TV shows, or full like entire CDs of like things that I missed out on that were American. But it wasn't just my nostalgia I could find. I could access other people's nostalgia.
Yeah,
access people's nostalgia from Japan now, because now you could find city pop. Like, so not only did I have access to the stuff that I couldn't remember if I dreamed or was real, but I had access to the stuff that other people couldn't remember or dreamed. So I was like, you were like able to walk into other people's memories and you could get all that stuff. And that's what the internet was being used for. It was like everything was compiled there. And now it's just, people, it's right there and they don't care. And like, what can AI show me? Christ, man.
I mean, that reminds me of Ghost in the Shell so much. Like Ghost in the Shell shaped a lot of my early kind of like personality, and like all that like external memories and things like that. It is so kind of like tied to how I've always viewed the world and like how I think the world will be in the future. So all of this like exported nostalgia and like kind of false nostalgia is like you're creating memories that aren't real, and you're kind of accessing our subconscious, like our collective subconscious, to like grab memories and to import that into your cyber brain or whatever.
Like memory collage.
So fucking powerful.
This is why Vaporwave was
so
important during that late 2000s, early 2010s period. Was like, this is like when you just there and every plunder through all this wonderful raw materials to rework. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But hold on, we're gonna get to this again in a moment. I really just want to get to because when did you started getting vinyl now when you started discovering city pop? That's when you started really purchasing the vinyls.
Yeah, I mean, I would go on Discogs and I would find these records for dirt cheap because, Japanese people didn't care at the time. They didn't think it was a big deal. It was tied to the bubble economy back then. So a lot of older people didn't want to remember that, or they thought it was just like, like
very interesting,
not good.
Really, that haunting concept behind the music. Really, it's such like like pleasant music with that bubble, and then them not wanting to remember this easy listening music. You know what I mean? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting part of the entire thing that people don't often associate with it. But it's it's a sign of kind of like how naive they were and how short-sighted they were to realize that there's this impending bubble burst coming like in a couple years that's gonna fuck your country for generations. And young people still to this day are feeling nihilistic and so non-optimistic about the future because of this event that happened that's still resonating today in that country. So yeah, the music probably isn't the most popular kind, and a lot of people to this day don't even know about it. Like you ask some Japanese younger people, and they'll be like, who, Maria Taguchi? I don't know who that is.
Really, it's her?
Wow.
Crazy.
Younger people, or they probably don't want anything to do with that era, or their parents never told them, because again, it's a reminder of kind of like the period of their country where they thought everything was going to go well, and it just took a turn for the worse, and they're still paying for that. The younger generations are paying for that. So there is probably this hesitance to embrace that music,
kind of like a generational divide.
Yeah, it's a reminder of my parents or my grandparents living this life that I'll never be able to achieve, and that is probably a very powerful paradigm that's like
as a pretty class conscious individual, I never thought about that. Listening to like some of the 80s and 90s hits that I love, like this is the music the boomers were listening to when they pulled up the ladder.
Oh wow, that's a fascinating interpretation. So
yeah, it is.
Then
it's really
how difficult was it How difficult is it when you have to do these vinyl sets that you do? That seems crazy to me.
Oh, I mean, it wasn't that hard because there's no beat matching.
So, man.
What I do,
right.
It isn't, because there's no beat matching, and house music, if you have an ear for it, you can beat match, or if you train enough. But this
still
music,
reading a crowd with it.
No, you're reading a crowd. It's more mood based. It's more vibe based. And if you can transition things so where there's no awkwardness or like crash or something
or just like failing to beat match,
jarring. Yeah, like you just have to kind of blend things so that they kind of transition well. As long as it's in the same vibe, because all these are different genres and they're tied under this umbrella of city pop, but there's still different genres. There's disco, there's rock, there's funk, all of this stuff. So you're trying to tie moods together more than like Lego block house music. Like house music is just Lego block. It's all just like
house music's definitely the easiest shit to mix.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're not like
Listen, this is like coming from two people right now who are like very good DJs. So of course you guys are talking about like, it's no big deal. But
no, but I'm seriously telling you, like I can't beat match that well. But I can blend things by mood, because sentiment and emotion, I could always read that for some reason, because I've always been emotion based and like sentiment and based.
Good.
I feel like I can read people's emotions better than I can predict what they're thinking, and that's
it's a really interesting distinction between the thinking and the feeling. You know what I mean? And that's where you want to be.
Music is feeling based too, right? Like,
exactly, man. Exactly. Correct. Couldn't agree more. So I have how did you even convince these bars and clubs to do city pop nights? Because that must have been a difficult sell.
I mean, at the time, I had a YouTube channel with like 50,000 followers and like
oh hell yeah,
thousands of views. Well,
actually, I'm sorry.
So like I would be like, here you go, here's my YouTube. That this is kind of popular.
Okay, I
see.
Like,
I have all these vinyl.
Wow.
There's a lot of hipster bars in Chicago, and people who are kind of like alternative leaning, who want to hear something different. So it wasn't that hard. Certain bars were like, oh, well, we don't want to take a chance. It's Japanese music. We don't know Japanese.
Kind of niche.
But right? It's too niche, and like we don't know if our crowds are gonna like it. Like all right, certain bars did take me in, and it worked out pretty well, because a lot of this music is more sonically palatable than just the Japanese. Japanese is kind of an afterthought, because when you think of it, you're listening to the melodies, to the bass, to the rhythm. There's so much more than just the lyrics. So there's more to absorb. And so people who are music people understood. But people who were just bar managers, who weren't music people, who didn't, who weren't actively, trying to find new music or trying to understand music, they wouldn't take a chance. But people who were really familiar with like, hey, like world music, world beat, it doesn't matter what country it's from, as long as the music is good, people are going to respond to it. So I was really lucky to find a couple people who, gave me a chance and, led me to where I'm today, because I think I've been DJing in Chicago since like 2018. So like 6 years or something like that.
Hell
For not being like a vinyl DJ before that, like that's pretty cool.
So I guess that brings me up to my next question, is that you have a very popular YouTube channel. How did you build that?
I mean, I didn't plan on building a YouTube. I had a YouTube channel there, and then I started, finding all these, vinyl records and city pop. So I was like ripping them to MP3s and like, putting mixes together based on their mood. And I would, I loved anime at the time, so I'd put like little animated gifs of just like looping old retro anime. So it kind of had like a feeling and mood to each one. And I had 5 followers or something at the beginning, and that ballooned to like 100,000, maybe like a 2-3 years later before the
Wow.
channel got taken down. So like it all happened so quickly, and it went away in like a blink of an eye. So it was like,
Damn.
my God,
looking
that must
back,
have been
it
hard.
was
How
like,
did you
That's
feel
disappointing.
when that happened? That's so disappointing.
I mean, it is what it is, like it wasn't my music,
Your
and
attitude.
I was really dumb at the time. I was younger, and YouTube was still kind of developing, and so I did what I thought was right. I wanted to share music, and I've always wanted to share music. And I did it not knowing that, hey, you know what? There's all these consequences that could happen with sharing copyrighted music. But at the time, all of that wasn't licensed to YouTube.
Literally been there.
Now
dude.
it is.
Yep.
Now
been
all that
there
music
too.
is licensed. Yeah. So like I understand, because I don't own any of it. I'm glad I did it, and I will do it again, because like it opened
got
a
you
lot
a
of
career
people's...
going. Got you to bring city pop into the clubs and bars.
Yeah, yeah. I've always wanted to share music, and that allowed me to share music, and I did it in a way that was so kind of like resonating with a lot of people that, I'm glad it happened. It's unfortunate that it kind of unraveled in the way it did, but that's just life, you gotta
Yep.
roll with the punches.
Just because it didn't last forever doesn't mean it wasn't good.
It also,
Sure.
but it also catalyzed something else. You know what I mean? It helped you bring the music that you were connecting to into to a whole new audience. You know what I mean? And it also probably like assuaged the fears of these bar owners who didn't think that this would work. And then you're like, hey, man, here's my fucking channel.
So check this shit out.
What the fuck you think of me now, motherfucker? Like, seriously.
Yeah. I mean,
so how did you you've been interviewed on television stations before. How did you all of a sudden find yourself becoming the ambassador for the city pop resurgence?
I mean, it's not something I wanted to be or do. I just kind of felt like I was pushed to do it. So I'm like, well, if it brings some awareness to the music and it brings some happiness to people, it's worth doing. And I'm not a camera person. I've never really liked being on camera. Like I don't like listening to my voice. Like I had a podcast and I had to stop doing it because I hated editing my voice.
Aww.
So like I've done it, and like I do it because it's important, and people have sent me messages at how the music helped them through difficult periods in their life, and I think that's so important because we need all the help we can get as human beings going through life in this world. Like we need every avenue that can afford us some kind of sense of hope. And so if the music can do that, no matter what genre it is, it's important that we do it, and it's important that we continue doing it. So, yeah.
You've toured through other countries DJing as well. I know you've been to Germany, right? And how did you link up with these gigs?
Oh, I'm really fortunate that people have wanted to work with me, and in this case, like this French DJ invited me to go on this mini tour with him, and
Crazy.
That's how that kind of got started.
That's badass.
So like, yeah, it's really fortunate, and I'm really grateful that good people have found me and good people have wanted to work with me and kind of help me, and I'm really grateful for that. I really am, because I never really thought the music would take me to where it did, and it's mind-boggling sometimes, because when you're younger, when you're first starting out in your career, you don't think that all these things are going to happen or that you're going to meet the people you do, but it happens. As long as you're open to it and you're genuine and you're kind of feeling like, people will be drawn to your frequency, and you'll find kind of like someone to help you. So I'm really grateful for that. Yeah.
Very cool.
So beautiful. And now I forgot the question I was going to ask. But anyway, so ask next. Well, I guess we'll get to this then. I don't think that you're not you're a DJ, and I think one of the things that makes you a really good DJ is that you are also a bit of a culture critic. You have opinions. You talk about what you feel. You stand behind what you say, and you've got a blog, and you've definitely put your feelings out there about things occasionally, and you have some criticisms of vaporwave these days, and I mean, I have some as well. When I think about when you mentioned earlier about the concept of like this is a thing that's like, you know, it's imbued in this time period, this like late 2000s, early 2010s sort of thing. And my thing has always been with the reason I think that it's tough. I think that vaporwave has to do different things these days is because it is pretty tied to that era, right? My reasoning for that is because since vaporwave is so tied to the internet, you know what I mean? And if the internet changes, where does that leave vaporwave? Because I said this earlier, but when the internet worked into this form where like this late 2000s, early 2010s form where people were just uploading all their old nostalgia online, it became a repository for people, you know, half remembered things that people had. You could access it again, and that became the raw materials with which you could rework and create new art. You know, that was really great. Like, it was a playground. I could go on Rapid Share. I could download entire albums. You could discover city pop for the first time. Like, you know, you got through your nostalgia, and then you're like, well, what were they remembering over in Wisconsin? What were they remembering over in Argentina? What were they remembering over in Japan? And then you find like all these commercials. Like, there's so much to work with, and I just feel like we've gone to this place now where people don't care as much about the old stuff, and it's now more about like, the internet used to be about what did I miss or what did I forget,
right?
And
Archiving
now the internet
things.
seems so now it's archive, and now it feels less like an archive. Now it's more about what haven't I seen yet? What can you show me? Like now it's like content creation. Every day you have to put out a new video, and because you're putting out things so frequently, everything is just looking the same. It's the same trends everywhere, the same text when people speak as the captions, the same songs on TikTok that they're doing a dance to, the same way of talking. You know what I mean? Because you got to keep up, and you got to just if you imitate somebody, that's the best way to keep moving forward. And you got to get a new video tomorrow too. It's all about that. It's all about sample packs. Forget about this. Forget about all that stuff back there. Here we just download this, put this stuff together. And the worst thing is like it's all about AI too. It's like forget about what happened in the past. Just type something in here. We'll show you something new. And I think the problem and the tough thing about vaporwave today is this change in the internet's paradigm of forget about what you've seen already. Let's look about what you haven't seen, and let's do it as quick as possible. And that's I think the tough place for the genre at the moment. What are your thoughts though?
I mean, yeah, what you said was really powerful. I agree with a lot of what you said. Seriously,
I've been thinking about this for a little while.
I mean, there's a lot to think about when you kind of try to put this genre into perspective, because it's a product of millennials, and we were the most advertised generation before any other. So like I feel like a lot of what we were kind of concentrating in the music was our kind of disdain for being marketed to, and for everything being so ephemeral and so throwaway corporate. It was all kind of corporations throwing away music and creating these commercials and making stuff that's not made to last. Basically, it's just made to be forgotten. It's just to kind of sell something to you, which is, I think a lot of us were onto that kind of sentiment that they were doing. They were trying to manipulate us with all this corporate bullshit. They were making all these commercials, all these fake kind of situations, and using music from the past to tie it all together in this weird bundle that we would accept as normal life. And a lot of us were kind of aware of what was happening to us and what was being fed to us, and we were expressing our our negative emotions about it into vaporwave. And like that's why a lot of dystopian kind of concepts came to be, and a lot of these like almost Marxist, almost anti-capitalist kind of sentiments were originally tied into vaporwave. And later on, when all of these themes were kind of discarded and like not thought of as actual vaporwave or part of what vaporwave was, because in like 2015 or 2014, like everyone thought vapor was just a meme. Like, oh, it's just a fun meme. It's not. There's no depth to it. There's no there's no reality to a lot of the stuff that's being expressed. When I think when vaporwave first started, we were kind of expressing these things. We were kind of trying to get our inner subconscious realized into manifested into real life, and we were doing that. And the further we go on in timeline, people started not caring so much about what the millennials thought, because it started getting carried over into other generations, and younger people who didn't share the same kind of memories that we did. So a lot of these like 80s music and like 90s kind of like New Jack Swing things and like stuff we were remixing and stuff we were like combining didn't really resonate with younger people because it was too far back already. So it's crazy that vaporwave became a nostalgia that we were trying to manifest. It's the nostalgia of art today, instead of being the nostalgia of yesterday, it's our nostalgia now. So there's just so much to say about it, and like I really hope someone smarter than me someday like write something or like teach us something about it, because I think it's something that we haven't fully explored yet within our like psyche. There's a lot to it that hasn't been written about, which I hope someone does.
Any particular criticism of vaporwave these days?
Well, I mean, what can I say? Like it's like I said, vaporwave is a product of its time. It's hard to replicate that. It's like saying, oh, well, let's make disco again. I mean, disco was a product of the 70s, and like for us to say that we can make disco authentically again is not possible.
I feel that.
What do you? They try and do that pretty frequently. Like, do you ever listen to any like modern like cold wave stuff? Like, there's like 1,001 goth bands out there that are trying to play like the same like sort of like Peter Hook style bass with like
Oh yeah.
And they're just, it always feels a little bit disingenuous to me because like, well, they're just using like stuff on their computer to create the sound of wear and tear. You know what I mean? Like
that's our reality. Like people are gonna use whatever tools are afforded to them, and vaporwave and chillwave, all that. We were first getting Ableton, and like we were able to buy software that replicated all of the tools that they had in the 80s. So we were able to kind of make a facsimile of the 80s. So yeah, I completely understand that. But anyone who's older is always going to be tied to the music that brought them up. So vaporwave and chillwave and all that, it really defined my a certain part of my life that I'll never forget. That kind of it created who I am today, and it led to who I am today. So for me to listen to music that's a facsimile of that is always going to be me half-heartedly trying to embrace something that is definitely not authentic to me. I don't know.
I totally see what you're saying. On the other hand, do you think people still can do it, even if they didn't come from that generation? In the same way that people can still play hardcore music, and maybe it's a little bit different, but it's not clearly from like 1985. You know what I mean? Like, can people still do this though? Do you think it can be genuine? Is that okay? Is that possible?
There is, good music is always going to be good music. If you're a stellar producer, if you have an ear for melody and chords, and you have some kind of authentic kind of purpose for doing it, and you're not doing it just to make money. You're doing it because you want to express something that's something inside you that needs to be expressed. That is so powerful, and it doesn't matter what generation you're in, it doesn't matter what you're using to create that music. If it's good music, it's gonna call out to people, and you're gonna feel it. And I feel that is just across the board, any generation, anybody
can do this. Yeah, it's just your heart has to be in the right place, basically.
It does, and the salt and pepperings have to be kind of like correct. But again, like if it's not authentic, if it's not from that time, you're always gonna have this half-hearted kind of like commitment to it. Like, oh, this is great, but it's never gonna be what I remember or what actually brought me up. So.
Fully understand.
Van, thank you very much.
Like the emotions. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I don't mean to interrupt. I'd like to go ahead and open up the chat for questions for Van. But yeah, thank you very much. Absolutely ripping truths. I'm kind of curious on that topic. What is your least favorite trend in music right now?
Oh, I mean, fake subgenres. Like, I think someone said something about brat. I'm like, what the fuck is brat? It's not a genre. It's not a subgenre. Like, subgenre to me back then was like, what was it? Ocean punk, or what was it?
Sea punk, yeah.
Sea punk. Like, that was like a movement. Like, there was a mini movement to brat, and like people trying to force genres or force niche genres. I feel is like
there's like
disingenuous and
like a whole movement of parties and things, and the theme is just like a thing that's popular. You know what I mean? Like the amount of brat parties that have popped up You know, I can't even like.
God.
I can't even.
I still don't know what
calculate.
it is. I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't know what the Brad is.
Someone.
It's a Charlie XCX album.
Wait, you really?
It's a Charlie XCX
like
album.
the
I didn't
biggest
listen
album
to
of
it.
the summer, dude.
I just saw it on like.
But
CNN
other than that, yeah,
I'm like, okay, this isn't.
Yeah,
because if CNN is talking about it, like. Yeah,
oh, there we go.
I feel like there's some over
movement.
compartmentalization with genres.
Like entire,
like, how would you guys describe Brad to me? Like, if I
know,
describe
right?
it as the Charlie XCX album.
Yeah, just like really fierce feminine pop, I guess. You know,
it's just like a really,
how is that
like
a subgenre in itself?
Not. It's just
because
really,
is it like, are people really saying Brad as a genre?
Well,
yes,
not,
like I felt like
it's. I would say it's now becoming like a lifestyle. Look, listen.
A lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
No, it's just very popular. It's a very good album too. You know, it's a fresh take on pop music.
Okay.
It's an album. It's not actually it's one person's album. Like,
okay.
You know, the tough thing to me is like we've gone to this point now where music has become so insular. Where it used to be there were like big movements. Now it's like, oh, one album made it. Like,
wow,
the music industry
point.
has shrunk so much that it's like if one album makes it, well, that's a whole genre. That's like an entire party themed around it. It's a lifestyle choice. Like that's just how like shrunken the music.
Well, that's how
industry
you
has become.
get
so few
something
to
like land with people. You know, you have to make it a lifestyle.
It's like the life. That's all anyone will talk about. You remember when there used to be lots of albums, there used to be lots of artists, lots of popular artists, lots of pop stars, and it's like, well, the music
and there was a variety
so
of
much,
sounds too.
They just like nobody can make a living off it anymore. So it's like if there's one album that does it, like wow, it's a miracle. Like that is the only album of the entire summer that like made it. And like that's why when you watch music videos for all the popular, that's why. And you see what these popular artists are doing nowadays. Like watch their music videos; they're just advertisements. Like watch like the latest video by any pop star, just full of like fucking that goddamn Beats boombox everywhere. That little guy, or like
the little Beats pill.
That fucking Beats pill is just in there, or they're like drinking something, or like I saw like the Weeknd's video. And it was a cool video.
Well,
and then
Van,
like,
you just said like everything's just trying to sell you something.
16. No, dude, at the end of it, it was just like they had like the watermark of shot on the iPhone 16.
You're shitting me? Oh my god,
it's fucking ridiculous.
That's
like,
so
it's
chintzy,
absurd.
dude.
They are like no one can make a living off music, and like that's so cheesy. And or they're just like they've gone to like they've become streamers. Like they just moved on to YouTube, and like they're just glorified streamers now.
Yeah.
And
bruh.
Yeah. So if one album becomes successful. It's everything. That's why. That's
it
why
has to make waves.
Is this a genre?
It has to make a wave,
and it turns into an identity and a lifestyle. That's how you get it to stick.
Of the summer. And it's a great. By the way, it is a great album. And
I haven't heard it yet, so I might have to listen to it now because I thought it was just a publicity thing where Brad,
it's a whole
what?
thing.
Okay,
it's a whole
like, what the fuck is going on?
The only album that was released this summer, apparently, or the only one that made it. You know what I mean? Like,
well, Chapel Roan's kind of blowing up too.
Chaperone's blown up too. I'm singing Peak Pony Club every day. It's a good song. Yeah,
oh,
Chaperone. That'll be
okay.
But like, there's
I'm
like,
not familiar, but I'll look into her.
Well, go start with Brad. You know, but anyway,
Brad,
I don't. Not that Brad needs me to promote it. Like,
yeah.
You see what it's doing to you?
You heard it on Hot Takes.
It has you in his clutches.
but like, yeah, Chaperone is dope. But that's the crazy thing to me is like, it's like when one album, it's the third time I've said this, fourth time I've said this, like when an album actually becomes successful, it's in this current climate, it now becomes a genre, it becomes a lifestyle. There's multiple parties themed after it. So
you gotta milk it, man.
Do you see how often artists are re-releasing their albums? Like they
dude, Taylor Swift constantly.
I can't even count how many Taylor Swift re-releases there are of the same album.
I thought 100
vinyl,
put
like
out
just
too
like
many
100
variants.
different vinyls of like just different colors.
Yeah, we are
it's a capitalist like wonderland right now.
You're talking about like what's going to happen to Vaporwave. What happened to mainstream music? That is completely collapsing right now. I can't even believe it. One album came out this summer and it was Brad. Anyway, Isaac, you had some.
No, we got a good question in chat from Dorito Dust HJ.
Get a drink with
Van,
right, guys.
With the current zeitgeist of copyright, what do you think the future of curation on digital platforms looks like?
That's a great question, and copyright really screwed me over in the end. But nowadays, record labels, especially from Japan, like anywhere, they know that licensing their music to streaming platforms is where they're going to make a lot of their money, because making 7-second videos, 12-second videos, whatever, with like a tiny segment of a song could yield some some money. So they're on to what Web 3.0 is going to be, where we're using corporate stuff to mix it with our own. And I really think licensing, all the licensing is going to happen on streaming, on social media platforms, and it's just going to continue like that to where it's going to be the base. It's going to be where a lot of the majority of people artists make their money, by lending music to all these platforms so people could repurpose them. And it's almost like a vaporwave kind of concept, to where we're repurposing music to our own means, and putting our brand on it, but we're they're still getting paid. So in the end, it's just going to be this kind of corporate cooperation of where the streaming platforms use our content, and they use the content from the record labels, and they make money from advertising, and because I'm not on TikTok or anything, so I still don't know how to use TikTok, and I'm embarrassed to say that. So sorry for any TikTokers out there.
Hey, no judgment.
But I really think that that's where the future of music licensing is going. Social media. So.
Van, you wrote an article a while back, The Rise and Fall of Vaporwave, and it was relatively controversial because you had kind of a negative view of a lot of modern kind of current vaporwave artists and sounds. Do you want to comment on that, or just kind of maybe expound upon what it was that you felt was lacking with the vaporwave scene, either at that time or right now?
Well, disclaimer, when I wrote that, it was during the pandemic, and a lot of us were on the edge, and I looking back, a lot of what I said, maybe it wasn't fair, because I had always loved vaporwave, and the way I'm talking to you about it, like I hope some people realize that like I had a really genuine kind of relationship with this kind of music. So the reason I wrote that genre was because like I felt kind of outcasted in a lot of the kind of social media groups and things like that, because like around 2014, 2015 on Facebook and on Reddit, a lot of these groups were starting to form.
That's true.
And these groups would like amass like thousands of maybe 50,000, 100,000 people just like in these groups asking what's vaporwave, is this vaporwave, and they'd post a picture of Pepsi can in the garbage, is this vaporwave? And so people would respond to it, right, like, oh, you have a purple gradient, and you have a Roman statue, it's vaporwave,
right?
So a lot of people who weren't making music or involved in any way with how vaporwave kind of came to be were kind of deciding these things. And so if you were a moderator in one of these groups, or if you were lucky enough to start one of the groups early enough that became a big group, you had power in deciding what vaporwave was and what vaporwave could be. Because if you were nobody like me in these groups trying to like fight against people saying vaporwave is just a meme, vaporwave has no meaning beyond just being this passing trend, and me trying to tell people about how it was like there's some anti-capitalist kind of like cyberpunk philosophy to it, and you get left out, and I got left out of so many groups.
Oh damn!
For just trying to like defend what vaporwave was to me when I first discovered it. So these people were banning me and like throwing me out of groups, and just for like trying to defend how I perceived vaporwave, and that was so invalidating, and it was so kind of like painful to me, because vaporwave to me as an outsider was a way for me to kind of like relate to people, and as an introvert it was like hard for me to do that. So vaporwave helped me, and when it became like a way for normies or people just who didn't have any kind of desire to participate in a culture other than just kind of mashing up images and having a laugh, it was really hurtful to me. It really changed my perspective on a genre, and music after that period started to feel like, oh, well, people are just trying to make money now. It's just a business to people now. People don't really care about any underlying philosophy. They just want to make a buck. And it felt really insincere. It really felt, a lot of people were just trying to do what corporations were doing to us when we created vaporwave. Because, corporations were trying to advertise to us and make us buy things based on, kind of like subliminal iconography and things like that, and people were using this and emulating what corporations were doing. So it just became like a parody of a parody, and it was just like, well, okay, well, where are we now? People are trying to sell me clothing and trying to sell me stuff that has no intrinsic value, and that to me felt like the downfall of vaporwave. So I felt
got
really
you. Just kind of rubbed you wrong.
From everything. It did, and that's why I kind of wrote that article. And I didn't think anyone was going to read it because, like, I'm nobody. I'm not a vaporwave producer. I DJ'd, but nobody really knew who I was. I wrote this article, and suddenly people were like, "Oh, well, fuck this guy." All right, I didn't think people were going to care that much because it's just my opinion. And I'm not a professor on vaporology or whatever. But
yeah, right.
All of that. But I just had an opinion, and I guess it must have. Plucked someone the wrong way because
right.
They reacted kind of strongly. So, yeah.
Appreciate the insight.
I always think it's a good idea to stir the pot. I'm always interested when I hear people with dissenting of voices or opinions because
it's
when everybody is just doing. And look,
I agree.
Kindest, most friendliest, inclusive person out there. But I enjoy the pot being stirred. It intrigues me because if it doesn't, then people get stale or they get bored.
Yeah.
I think it's good for people
keeps things interesting.
Themselves.
It's very true. I think every genre from the past had some kind of institution or some kind of safeguard for standard. But vaporwave, as being one of the most unique genres to ever emerge, didn't have that. We had the internet, which was largely just random people.
Just a giant playground.
It was a giant playground, so we didn't really have any, guardrails for, how this genre should evolve in a way that's gonna be meaningful or good. And music, the music paid a price for that because critiques and criticizing music became like, oh well, who are you to say this music is bad? Whatever, your opinion doesn't matter. Critiques were seen as just negative attacks. When critiquing something shouldn't be perceived as negative, it's just a critique. You take it or you leave it, but, there's always something good and a negative. You have to, find a silver lining in a critique.
I feel like some of the harshest critics of things are the people that love those things the most. Like, man, I might just shit all over Final Fantasy, but it's because I love it, and it disappoints me when they do stupid things. So I guess I feel that.
Too, so, I'll still play any Final Fantasy game because again, it's tied to nostalgia and these memories that I've had of the past. And I think the older we get, the expansiveness of our kind of ability to see the past and to kind of put the past in a context that is meaningful. It grows bigger and bigger and. I feel maybe that's where vaporwave is going to go because younger people are going to start creating vaporwave in the image they have of the past and the memories they remember and things that they kind of found to be like warm memories or something like that. So I think vaporwave, I don't think it's dead, and I said it was dead, and I said that many years ago, and I take it back. I don't think it's dead. I think it's
it's a hot take.
I think it's diminished. I think it's diminished, but it's evolving.
Look, here's the thing: they can still do it the way it was done back then. In the same way that you will hear punk bands or hardcore bands still try and do it the way that, like Black Flag did it in the first few albums or whatever. It might be different, but they don't really necessarily need to. They can go back to that, and they can still use those tools. Are still available. Like I said, the internet used to be this repository for things you missed, and people forget that now, and they're just looking at what they haven't seen. Can I type in? I'd like to see Isaac do a hat wobble. Let me type that into AI and have it happen. Make me a new, so if they could, it's still there. They can go back. I don't, they can still go back and find that, and they can. The nice thing about that is they can immerse themselves in it. You know what I mean? In the same way that I was my first bands were hardcore and punk bands, and I wasn't there for when that happened, but I was able to go back and immerse myself in it and feel what kind of do my own version of feeling what they felt, my best, and I could make that music too and try and do justice to it. So people who were born in the 2000s can act. It's still there. You know what I mean? The problem is that people forget it's still there and they don't care. My issue is people not caring about the archive behind them, and them caring more about just typing some bullshit into a fucking
it's an AI thing.
Yeah, dude.
Right.
Or being worried about keeping up with doing the same thing everybody else is doing, so they don't get left behind and they can monetize their fucking whatever they're doing, and they forget that there's a lot back there that you can go and access that, and you can do it. It could be just as good or better even than some of the artists that did it first. I mean, and I think the big issue is people forgetting about the past, and that's my problem, and that's why maybe sometimes stuff doesn't get as good, is because they forget that there's so much there behind them that they can use as raw material. Oh, thank you, sir.
I mean, yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying, and I think, as a millennial and someone who's past the main advertising generation, because Gen Z is now the most advertised to generation. Everything's targeted towards them, so they will kind of start to do, I think, what we did, because I think the hardest thing for a lot of people is letting go of things, and I think a lot of people who hold on to vaporwave don't want to let go, and they don't want to see that it's evolving in a way, because younger people are taking elements of vaporwave and turning that into or mixing that into other genres, or mixing that into other concepts or other ways of seeing the world and seeing nostalgia, because their nostalgia is going to be different than ours. So yeah, vaporwave is not dead. I think it's just evolving. It's becoming something else, and it will mean something else to other people, because their nostalgia is going to be obviously different than ours. So I think vaporwave in 10, 15 years could be completely different than what we would ever expect it to be.
Right.
Because,
they do say that
when we were making
back.
vaporwave, oh my God, yeah, I think time is cyclical for sure.
Well,
absolutely.
I think everything moves in circles.
Everything comes back, but it doesn't come back the way you remember it exactly.
Yeah, good point.
It's exactly true, because
it's got like a different spin
older
on
people,
it.
For sure, older people, when we were making vapor, we were probably listening to what we were making, like, I grew up in the 80s when these kids are making 80s inspired things, and it was probably nonsense to them, or it was kind of like really novel and a really kind of cheeky way of trying to remember the past. And I think we're gonna have that same kind of perspective in a way when Gen Alpha or whatever starts making vaporwave, or things that are like resonant to them from like the early 2000s or something.
I mean, maybe, but Gen Alpha could go back and they might just pick stuff from the 70s. I mean, here's the thing:
you
really connected to city pop, but you didn't experience city pop. You know what I mean? And that's not your nostalgia. That isn't your nostalgia. But the internet is this wonderful way to access nostalgias that you're not part of. Actually, the one thing I can say about a lot of younger people is they'll access other stuff and incorporate it into what they're doing now, whether that be their fashion set. Look, none of them were around when Marc Jacobs did that fucking like grunge, the grunge fashion show. You know what I mean? For what was the company? That thing, it completely failed. It was a big failure in the early '90s where he did the grunge. Well, that's how they all dress now. Like that's what they wear. That's the inspiration.
Oh yeah, I remember wearing Jinkos in high school.
Yeah.
No, it's
now
not
the kids are
Jinkos.
doing
They're doing that too.
No, but I'm just saying, like,
though.
it's weird to see the kids doing what I was doing in high school.
They didn't experience that, you know what I mean? And they access that. So, who knows what they're going to do? But you're right about, like, everything.
I think every generation in the 80s and in the 70s, they were looking back to the 60s and the 50s for a lot of inspiration.
And Happy Days was the television show.
That's all they had,
Happy Days, that's all they had.
Right.
Yeah,
so
man,
there was a lot of like stuff like that in the 80s, like looking back on the 60s and 50s. And I think maybe, in the 2030s, they'll look in the, 2010s and the early 2000s for inspiration.
It's true, but yeah, it's I don't know what they're gonna do, but because like I don't think we ever had this much access to like nostalgia. So like here's the thing: is like we looked back a few 2 decades. We used to always look back about 2 decades, right? But that was also in a time before we had so much easily archived history. So I would.
Everything's been turned on its head now.
Future is that people look back, and they don't just look back to their 10 and 20 years. They look back throughout all as much of modernity as they can.
I mean, I know vaporwave artists, people that have even come on our show that are doo-wop fans.
Wow.
I mean,
so you had no choice
good music is
good
music,
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
you had no
it's
choice
facts.
to look back only 2 decades prior, because that's all that was left. Everything else had probably dissolved or was in a fucking library. Like you could only look back a few decades because it was still in the stores, and that was where you could grab nostalgia. But now, when you look back, you don't have to just look back 2 decades. You can look back much farther than that. My utopia concept is people, when they look back on everything. They have the benefit of it all being at their fingertips. Like the thing that makes me upset is people just looking at to what have I not seen. I mean, like you have everything there. You have your 90s, you have your 80s, you have your 60s, you have all that, just like, and like that's the sad thing about the internet too, is how much like a lot of that stuff is being thrown behind a paywall. Like I think the worst thing
interesting
that's happened,
point, yeah.
The worst thing that's happened to the internet is like the corporatization of it, where like before, like you had access, like, well, your YouTube channel was taken down, you know what I mean? Like, and people were able to look back at that stuff through your YouTube channel. But now, like, everything is being like gobbled up and put behind a paywall, and that's like extremely sad to me. You know what I mean? It's that, you know, that's the thing that worries me.
We got a great question in chat from Roge Corp. Let's get that question answered. Van, any newer vaporwave and adjacent artists you've been fucking with lately?
Newer vaporwave. I mean, the reason I stopped listening to vaporwave because it became really tedious to find good vaporwave. It's a question to ask you. Because I would find so much vaporwave I didn't like that it would just like throw me off, and I just, you know, powering through album after album and not finding anything that kind of like, you know, excited you was it was really detrimental to my
relate to that.
ability to appreciate it. And so to this day, like, I know albums that are vaporwave adjacent that have vaporwave elements to it, that are good. Like, who
I'd love some name drops.
Let's drop some names if you know anything.
Man, I can't think of it right now. But I can make a playlist if you guys want to.
You sound like me. Put me on the spot and I'll forget everything you ever asked me. But yeah, playlist would be badass.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that for you guys. But there's a lot of cool stuff coming out of SoundCloud, and you know, Bandcamp still has some good stuff coming out too.
Oh yeah.
I just have to kind of put a name to things because, you know, I just have Spotify now, and like everything just plays on a playlist, and you don't really think about it because I'm driving most of the time. And before I used to, like, you know, listen to music more intently and like have access to just maybe one or two kind of like music streams. But now it's like you have so many options for music and so many options to discover music. You know, you can find music on a toothbrush or some shit. Like, there's so many avenues to discover music that it becomes
I've literally
overwhelming.
seen like vapes with like Tetris on them.
It's nuts.
Some shit like that's gonna happen. Mark my words.
Well, because, you know, they're just trying to like take up all your time and attention. That's how they get you now,
right? Van, who's an artist or like DJ or just anyone within the scene that you consider to be an idol or mentor?
That's a good question, and I feel really kind of silly for not having someone at the top of my head. I don't know. To be honest with you, it's something I might have to get back to you on because I don't know. I know no one has really done what I did. Or kind of influenced what I did. Maybe Nujaba's,
okay,
because what he was doing with like you know, vinylism back then was really kind of new for me. Jay Dilla, of course. Well, they have that history.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, like, I was into a lot of chopped and screwed things in like 2005 or something like that. So, you know, a lot of like bedroom pop and hauntology and like
nice.
You know, a lot of these genres that were like precursors to chillwave were really influential to me. And like, so yeah, I would say like DJ Crush was really big for me in like the late 90s. I think he had like this track in the original Blade that was like so, like, it stuck. It was like an earworm for me, and like it's still stuck in my brain today. But I forgot the name. So,
dude,
but yeah, it's one of those.
You sound like me.
Yeah.
What's
I forget things. I'm getting older, so I forget things all the time.
Okay, I have to ask a question though, because what was the vaporwave album that you really got into? What was one of the first vaporwave albums you really got into?
I mean, Memory Vague by 106.
That's a solid
one of the best
fucking
ones.
answer.
Artists in particular you liked a lot that really.
I like Mirror Kisses and like 20.
Yeah, me too.
Or something like that. Like, because, you know, Mirror Kisses was doing like this really emotional kind of, like, you could tell he was singing from like this place of authenticity. Like, you could he was making music that was authentic to himself, and that's powerful. And like people who can, you know, kind of register that kind of sound or that kind of emotion, you respond to it. So I think vaporwave and stuff like that was missing that element, because vaporwave was mostly sample based, but he was making something different, which I thought was new and really stuck with me for the time.
It's taken him pretty far.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean,
well said.
I remember Luxury Lead. I remember Brains. I remember Eyeliner. A lot of people back then were like,
Brains a lot.
You know, Childhood was one of my favorites at the time.
Childhood. That's a
music,
solid. Like, yeah, all right. Some Wasted Nights. Okay.
So I mean, a lot
solid
of that,
name
like
drops.
business casual. Like I used to buy a lot of these cassettes
John.
back in the day, and like I sold most all of them for like a good profit because like it shows you like like other people wanted this music and it resonated with other people and it still probably does. The early vaporwave was definitely something that I look back on fondly, and it's a warm memory for me. It's nostalgia.
I'd love to get
an
early vaporwave best of mix from you.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple mixes from back in the day also, but under some other name. I forgot. I used to DJ under weird aliases, and I used to put stuff out on SoundCloud under weird names and stuff that wouldn't trace back to me because back then anonymity was like cool. Like nobody wanted to be known because that aspect of mystery was kind of cool. It was kind of like a mystique. People responded to that kind of like personality back then. I think we lost a lot of that, but yeah, back then it was the way to make vaporwave. Like you didn't want your real name, you wanted some alter ego that kind of fit the vibe, fit the mood. Yeah.
Van, what's a genre, album, or act that you used to be really into that you no longer are? And I want to know why.
Oh, I used to like future funk. I feel like it's weird saying that I almost feel guilty for not liking it anymore because it was, a part of the vaporwave kind of paradigm. It was part of that, it was just
childhood baby
vaporwave, Yeah, childhood was like that, but it was like mid range. It wasn't like completely.
That's true.
Future funk for me, it was like halfway between vaporwave and future funk. It was a really cool kind of style. It was more French house, I think, probably looking back.
Right.
And the a lot of future funk kind of influenced my liking for city pop, but I kind of side with the crowd that says it's more French house than future funk, because future funk is just like, I don't know, it's so niche. I could
hear that. We've had some other guests say that actually.
Needed that, really.
Yeah. You're not the only one that seems to think that.
It really is, and if you say future funk, I think Young Bay to this day, lately, he doesn't even go by, anything future funk related, because if you want to break into like the mainstream, you can't say you're future funk, you can't say you're vaporwave. These things are going to be so off-putting to producers or label execs that are like, what? Future funk? What are you talking about? Like, how am I going to sell this to other people?
He's getting back in touch with that though now. Like he's got this new tour coming out, which is like the classic stories. He's doing it, I think, with like Night Tempo or somebody.
Really?
He's what happens kind of like is you do go you know how it is, like if you push forward in your career for a while, you get pretty far, and then you kind of like wait, let me look back at who I was and where this all started at. And I think he's just kind of at that point in his career right now.
I think that's valid.
This is a very recent thing though.
Yeah, I mean, everything comes in cycles, right? Like we discover ourselves, we forget ourselves, we reinvent ourselves, and then we go back to what started everything all. And like everything is just cyclical in nature.
Very true.
I think time is just like, it's like that. Everything comes and goes and comes back again. And, we discover ourselves, we rediscover ourselves. It's just a process of just, being a human being and being alive in this time, which is such a weird time to be alive, right? So.
Very true.
Yeah, it's a very weird time to be alive. That's true.
Van, great question. Lil Cyber Angel wants to know what your favorite city pop album is, or if you can't narrow it down to one, give us your top 5.
Oh, yeah, I've always been against narrowing things down to just one thing because, it's
too
just
hard.
Impossible because, I like things evenly in different ways. So
Very
I
true.
would say my top 5 would be Yamashita Tatsuro's For You, which is probably one of the best city pop albums ever made. Anri's, what is it? It's, God, I can't think of it. It's right behind me too. Wait,
oh shit! He's got it on the
This is
wall.
what she signed
All
for
right.
me, yeah.
Well,
She signed this
She
one.
signed it for
That's
you?
awesome.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, it's
That's
pretty,
so
pretty
cool.
nice, but for you, for sure. I'm
Wow.
gonna say Takako Mamiya's Love Trip, which is, I think I have it up there somewhere. Pocket Park by Matsubara Miki, and definitely Juko Ohashi's Tea for Tears. Well, she died
Damn.
last year suddenly, so it was kind
Oh
of
damn!
I
Rest
saw
in
your
peace.
post about
yeah.
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Dude,
so,
that's
I would
badass. We
say
might need
those
you to
five.
drop some links to that in the server later on.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. Like, I love
Yeah.
making lists, so
Yeah, we'll figure out a way to get this in the hands of people so they can listen to it. You know.
yeah. I mean, the more people listen to the music, the more, that I think that's the whole purpose of music, right? Like making sure it's played and that people are able to access it free in ways that, because when you put stuff behind a paywall, like Skelly said, like, it doesn't benefit culture, it doesn't benefit civilization. The way forward is making everything accessible, and that's how
I love
music
that.
is going to evolve. That's how culture is going to evolve. We can't block anyone from access to anything.
That's hard as fuck, dude. Great question in the chat from Quiz. What is your definition of city pop? And is there an example of stuff that's called city pop that you would disagree with?
I mean, city pop was never a defining kind of category. It's always been kind of like, well, in the 80s, it was a marketing kind of term for Japanese labels. They wouldn't really classify anything as city pop. It was just kind of like, oh, well, this music is, like, it was kind of like urban pop. It was just saying urban pop. It wasn't like,
okay, sure.
saying, well, this should be that should be that. I think YMO isn't city pop, and a lot of people categorize them as city pop because now people just see anything Japanese from the 80s as city pop. Like, even if it's Kaiokyoku, even as Enka, if it's anything like that, like, they'll just say, oh, it's city pop because that's all they know. But these genres aren't. YMO is definitely, for me, like, it's more like Kraftwerk, like synthesizer, early precursor to EDM kind of stuff.
Okay.
It's not city pop to me, but a lot of people think YMO is city pop when it's not. Something isn't. So.
Good answer. What is your musical guilty pleasure?
Dolly Parton.
Hey,
that
shout
weird,
out Dolly
cheesy,
Parton.
Like, I love that 9 to 5 kind of like really kind of
good
quirky,
hooks and shit.
Like pop with good hooks, and like it was just kind of like music to sink into your ear and like make you, it's just catchy music. I think
Nice.
a lot of that is missing today. A lot of music tries to be so complicated or so like artificially complex or so like
Artificially complex.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I think the simpleness, the genuineness of music back then is something that hopefully we'll come back to. And I think every couple generations, every couple cycles, we do return to this urge for music that's more simple, that's more heartfelt, and I think maybe next couple of decades we'll return to that. Stuff that's just simple and heartfelt and catchy.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's good pop. I love pop music. I think that's the basis for a lot of the stuff today. So.
But you also like outsider music and left field stuff. So what is like the weirdest music that you enjoy?
Oh man, I mean, 102 Point Never's music is today. It's weirder than it was, I think, before. It's really experimental. And I really enjoy that. I don't know. I mean, I would say a lot of there's cold wave kind of like people nowadays that make really like new order-ish kind of music. There's like Prison Planet is one of my favorite new bands. Yeah, Prison Planet. Gotcha. I would say look him up. He's really cool. Yeah, I would say, like newer cold wave is kind of having a revival nowadays, and I'm really into that kind of thing.
Like
I don't know,
Black
because
Marble?
It's more like Black Marble is really cool, but he's
Like,
a little bit
I think
older now. But
old wave.
I really love that.
He's a really good songwriter in general.
Yeah, that was really cool. Like newer new wave interpretation. A Black Marble, definitely for sure. I think he had a newer one called Tom, and I forgot. It was like two names together. But yeah.
Oh, you're talking about One Oh Tricks Play Never?
No, Black Marble.
Oh, what's the two names? Is it an album
Yeah,
or
it was like
another group?
something. It was like a guy and a girl's name. I forgot what it was. It was like a song that they did recently.
Okay.
I feel so validated right now. I forget everything. I'm not the only one.
No, I mean I always do. It takes a little bit of stirring.
You're gonna end up tweeting about this later. Be like, that's what I forgot to talk about.
No, I definitely will because I feel bad, and I really want to give these artists, give them a name shout so people listen to them and discover them. I would say one of my favorite indie bands from the last decade is Wild Nothing. Was probably one of my favorite bands. Like in 2012, they came out with Nocturne, which is probably in my top 5 records of all time. It's probably one of the best indie rock records. Yeah, because I've always loved indie rock and indie pop, like Beach House and things like that.
I'm really glad you said that because Limerence just asked what your favorite chillwave artist or band was. Ooh, is it Wild Nothing?
I mean, Washed Out. I mean,
Washed Out.
Wild Nothing was never.
Limerence is a huge.
I think chillwave. They were more like indie rock.
You're right. They were kind of adjacent. They ended up on chillwave mixes, but
really,
yeah, they were more like like kind of surfy. I would say.
Yeah, he had some synthesizer kind of based music later on that I would say was chillwave adjacent, but I would say Washed Out is my favorite chillwave band. Of course, Neon Indian and Tori Umwa were like the trifecta of just like chillwave pioneers for me. They made so much music that to this day I listen to, and I have a lot of it on vinyl. And I look back fondly on that music because it was, these were defining records for me back then. But yeah, I would say Washed Out for sure.
Hell yeah. Van,
Limerence will love that answer, by the way.
Yeah, Limerence will. They love Washed Out. Van, there's been some criticism leveled at you due to your I guess like the story behind your discovery of city pop and just kind of the way that you choose, or at least at one time chose to write about city pop, especially on Reddit. As you probably well know, a lot of people kind of like took umbrage with the anecdotal way that you chose to talk about the significance of city pop. What do you think about that? Or do you have any comments or statement about that?
I mean, I think everyone's opinion is valid in their own way. Like I made a lot of mistakes and, writing things and not expecting people to read them. I would just write things, like I was younger and I was just like, I'm just going to,
didn't realize the influence you had.
Where, like,
put my opinion on the internet.
Because I didn't think about it. I didn't think anyone cared because I never really saw myself as someone who's influential. Because I think anyone who does think they're influential is kind of weird. Like I would never see myself in that way. And like to this day, it weirds me out when people say I am influential because I've never seen myself that way and I still don't. So when I write things and I wrote things, I definitely did. People read them and I don't know, they would critique them and that's their own thing.
You were a critic and then they were a critic of that criticism.
And they were a critic of my that's completely fair. So I don't knock anyone. I should have put disclaimers on things, and I recently started disclaiming things like I'm not saying that this is the end all of what the genre is or what is and what isn't. This is just my perspective. And it was just my perspective. But I wrote things in a way that I was kind of liberal in how I would describe things, and I would use language that was kind of like over the top or really kind of excessive. So people would read these things. Yeah, a little bit. I had a way of writing. That I wrote for myself, basically. That I wrote to please myself. So I would write these things, and people would critique them, and they'd say, "Oh, well, you're making light of something, or you're not being as serious as you should." And at the time, it didn't register because I didn't think that anyone cared or anyone was reading. But the more and more I realized people were reading this, and it was becoming a thing. And so I really regret anyone who read what I was writing and thought that I was not putting the appropriate amount of respect, because I have nothing but respect for the music, for Japanese music, for vaporwave, for vaporwave artists, for anyone who I've ever put into my writing or referenced. I apologize for anyone who took that the wrong way, but it was never my intention to disrespect any culture, any genre, any artist, anything. Everyone has the right to their opinion, and so I respect what they wrote about me, and it is what it is. But that's just the nature of reality. We have to keep talking about things. We have to keep writing about things, even if it's sometimes bizarre or it seems a certain way. Like who was he? What is it? Hunter S. Thompson's like kind of writing.
Yeah.
It rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but it was so raw and it was so kind of real that it was, to this day, it's something that people reference. And I feel that like that kind of writing, when we created it, it really resonates with the people it needs to resonate with, and it affects the people it needs to affect. Even if it ruffles feathers, it's sometimes needed. So
hey, listen.
I think that's respectable.
I like troublemakers. I thought it was fun. I enjoy when people stir things a little bit, and it's interesting to get people thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, we do run a show called Hot Takes.
I don't know, man. I just like
exactly.
I love
So
ripping on stuff.
I knew what I was getting into.
I got a thing for the bad guys. What can I say? No.
I mean,
I love ripping on shit.
Multidimensional. Everyone has dimensions to them.
I have a thing for people who are passionate and are going to share what they want to share and are going to do what they're good. And that's why I like that.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, like I don't know. I don't know.
It got people talking. It got people thinking. It got you thinking, and also probably got you into the Vaporwave documentary too.
Maybe, yeah. Again, we write things when we're younger, and we look back on it, and we're like, oh, okay, wow. Like, we evolve as people, and our opinions evolve, and as artists we evolve, and it's just a never-ending story. We keep going forward, and sometimes we look back and we're like, oh, we said some things that were kind of spicy, but
there you go.
It is what it is.
I prefer people who wear their feelings. I prefer people who wear their feelings on their sleeve rather than are polite all the time. You know what I mean? I like people who do that.
Yeah, I just like to be a little scamp, a little ne'er-do-well.
At least you know that when they're saying something, you can trust it's coming directly from them, from some place of thought and some place in their heart, as opposed to people who are just going to agree.
It means that you give a shit,
It means you give a shit, exactly. Some people are so concerned about following rules and being polite.
I mean, I want to know what you don't like about it. Don't just be like Shima33 or somebody and just be like, oh, Vaporwave. Like, I want to know what
like
you don't like.
I would never put anyone under the bus like that, because nobody deserves that. I think as artists and as people who are in a very niche genre, everyone is entitled to their artistic expression. Everyone's entitled to make a living and to have the benefit of the doubt. If you're making music, you're making Vaporwave or whatever genre just to make money, and you're not really putting your heart and soul into it, then yeah, I'm not gonna jive with you, and I'm not gonna mix well with that kind of personality or that kind of atmosphere. But there are artists that you could tell they're putting their heart, they're expressing what needs to be expressed within themselves, and that carries over into the music, and you hear it, and it you end up buying their tapes, you buy their vinyl, whatever, because you know that the music is coming from their their true self, their authentic self, and that's so important today.
It's meant to touch your soul.
Wish more people did it.
Yeah, I feel that on a spiritual level, man. What is an act that you like a lot that you feel like does that? Maybe somebody preferably that we've never heard of. Like, put us on.
I don't know. I mean, to this day, I'm a big Radiohead fan. I've always loved Radiohead because Tom York has been through some shit, and you could tell he's been through some shit. Dude. He makes music that is so, related to what he's going through. And I feel that's so good. Being able to relate to someone and the fucked up shit they've been through is so good. It feels so good. It's like catharsis, because you're like, oh my God, someone has been through more fucked up shit than I have, and they're putting music out there that it helps me go through whatever I'm going through. And so that for me is a very important thing in music, and it's something that I find rare these days. So I'm not sure. I listen to music, but having that connection to music as I did in the past is harder and harder, because there's just so many avenues to listen to music now. It's harder to kind of like focus on one kind of stream, you know.
How many hours a day do you think you listen to music?
Oh, I mean, I wake up, I listen to music, and I listen to music throughout the day in the background sometimes. So I would say like 5 to 6 hours.
Very cool.
Or so, but you know, these will be playlists from other people, or there'll be like curated things on like Spotify or something. So I don't always have the time to like run over to the, you know, whatever's playing and look at who's, you know, on at that time. But sometimes I do.
I was going to ask if you had like a preferred method.
To the Brat album, right?
Yeah, that's gonna be my next one, the Brat thing.
Do you have some like preferred curators or like playlists that you're comfortable divulging?
I mean, there's some classic vaporwave stuff on Spotify that I think is really, really good. I don't want to say any names because I just, I don't.
Damn, that was what I was hoping I would get. But all right.
Maybe later, you know, I'll make
sure.
You know, a little email so you can check some stuff out. But
there you go.
I'm hesitant to name names and things like that because I've gotten into trouble and sometimes people don't want.
Oh, that's unfortunate. You would think even if it was praise, like, but hey, I won't press you.
Artists are sometimes strange beings.
Yeah.
You know, so
I mean, hey, they put their heart and soul, ideally, into their shit, right?
Right. So.
Well, do you have a favorite karaoke song?
Let me see. I would say "Careless Whisper."
Ooh, great choice.
That's
always fun.
A really good karaoke. Yeah, it's
always fun.
Something you can get into.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Imagine it's probably.
Sorry.
It's probably hard to find a city pop song you can karaoke. In America.
Oh, yeah, in America. I work at a Japanese sake bar in Chicago called Murasaki Sake Lounge, and it's probably the oldest sake bar in the city. It's from the 80s, and they have a lot of. Well, since I started playing there like 5 years ago, you know, they put some city pop into their karaoke system, so you can find some stuff like that there.
Hell yeah! Well, I'm glad to hear that you can get it somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's ever in Chicago, I would really recommend going to that bar, Murasaki Sake Lounge.
Murasaki Sake Bar.
Yeah, it's
very cool.
It's really cool. Like, they haven't changed the interior since the 80s, so it looks like you're walking into like a Yakuza lair. It's
unreal.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Skelly, you know we got to go to you said Murasaki Sake Bar, right?
Let's do it.
In Chicago.
Let's go, man. Let's go. Let's go. I really want to get back to Chicago. I told you. I mean,
me too.
I have some continuing education courses coming there, but I want to get back there soon.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since I've been, and I'd like to go back.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, man, it's a lovely city, and the food here is great. So.
Oh, hell yeah. Man, we're close enough to the end of the show that we may as well go ahead and get our little wrap-up portion started. We're going to give you the time and space to talk about anything you want. Shout out anybody you want or promote, or just really say anything you want before we wrap up.
I mean, I appreciate that. And, you know, I just want to give credit to everyone in any scene that's affecting like vaporwave, chillwave, every artist. I think I've said some things in the past that were probably, you know, out of pocket. And I apologize to anyone that felt in any way that I was underappreciating what they did, because I think everyone has a valid voice, and everyone's entitled to expression, and all of this helps society. It helps culture, especially in our kind of little niche pockets on the internet. It really does help, and you never know who you're helping. So I really hope that everyone just keeps making music in any genre they want, because you never know who it might help or who it might get through whatever they're going through. You do really make an influence on somebody, and you never really understand that until you do it and someone is helped by it. So, I mean, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's supported me and who supported the music, and thank you to you guys especially also for having me on here. So thank you to everyone, and yeah, keep making music, and you know, keep being your authentic self. So thank you.
Love that. Are you still working on mixes? Are you still posting anything online anywhere? Can we find any current work? Got to go see you live, huh?
I make indie mixes sometimes on SoundCloud, but I stopped making anything city pop related.
I got you.
This is a little bit of trauma in that. So
it
is what it is. It's just like
I understand.
Yeah.
There's not much to say other than that. I learned things, and I'm grateful for learning. And we continue to learn as human beings, and what else can be said other than that? We just have to keep going forward, right? So,
hell yeah, wise words, man.
Very wise words.
Skelly, do you want to talk about anything you got going on coming up?
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, the next Eclipse Witch House dance party will be on 11/16 at Milk Boy. Then there is also a very cool event that I'm participating in, which I can't really talk about yet, but that I'm sure more information will come about that soon. Also, the album, the Secret Schools, has officially completed the art direction for my next album, and that's done. And it's all, obviously the album's done, mastered by our very wonderful Fire Tools. So that's off to the label, and that should be coming. Oh, okay, never mind. Skelly playing Vaporwave 2. I guess it was announced. All right, great.
Oh,
there
nice.
Thanks, Quiz.
Hell yeah.
I didn't know it was announced or not. All right, cool. So there's that. The new album's done. The art direction for it is completed by Secret Schools. It's all off to the record label. It's going to be released on the sister label of Geometric Lullaby, Hush Tones, which is a really cool label that covers a lot of the more interesting and odd and spooky sounding type of music. That's like the spooky arm of that label. So check it out.
Yeah. Shout out
that'll be
Mason.
coming out soon. There's going to be some live stream that they're going to be doing soon as well, but that's not been announced yet. And then, so I have the one Eclipse party, which is coming up soon. But the next one, I'm really excited actually about the next one after that, because the next one after that, which isn't going to be for obviously a few months, that one is, things are going to a whole new level with that party. I can't even talk about that one just yet.
Oh man, I want to know about bigger. It. You gotta tell me after this.
It's too early because there's already one coming up. You
gotta tell me.
I'll tell you, and I'll tell. But in November. But then the one after that we've already been designing that one, and it's going to be crazy. So it's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, and I think that's it for me. Oh, wait, also, if you want to, I've been getting into 35mm photography. If you want to follow my Instagram, Death Romantic.
Death Romantique.
Antique. It's a portmanteau.
It's pretty badass. He's got some great props.
Thanks. It's a portmanteau
not to like
of romantic
downplay the camera
antique.
work, but
_romantique. Yeah, thank you. Okay, that's
Hell yeah. So I'm gonna do this in chronological order. We got Rouge Fest 2 coming up the 19th of October, and I am participating. Holy shit. Got a 20-minute chillwave set, actually. Unfortunately, Van, it's newer chillwave, so but it's got some George Clanton.
I want to hear it.
Yeah, thank you, man.
I like slide. I like all that stuff.
Yeah, got some George Clanton. Got some Brother Tiger. Man, how did we not talk about Brother Tiger tonight?
Garden. I think he came out with The Garden or something. It was like a song called The Garden.
Yeah, his shit is
really
so
good.
I worked that late Arcane song that I was talking about earlier that I like a whole lot. It's in there. So tune in on the 19th of October for Rouge Fest 2.
Is that going to be on Twitch?
It's a live stream event, yeah. I've seen the lineup. It is not allowed to be disclosed, but it's hard. It's a great lineup. But yeah, man, mixing some chill wave, some good stuff. Let's see, Vapor Rays has been changed to the 9th of November. So Utopia District is putting on that fundraiser live stream event with all funds being donated to, to awareness and like research for ALS. So Vapor Rays is going to be Saturday, November 19. Sorry, not 19, the 9th. The 9th Saturday, November. And I've got a 30-minute kind of like neo R&B set. Lot of like Active Child, How to Dress Well, Supreme Cuts, that kind of stuff. I think I got a Magic Fades track in there. Just kind of like early 2010s, more like R&B adjacent stuff. I'm pretty proud of it. I put it together a long time ago. So anyways, I hope you guys like it. And then the week after that, looks like we got, on the November 16th, we got Vaporade 2 put together by Quiz. Don't want to put any details out that haven't been personally co-signed by Quiz.
Sure if I was allowed to announce that. didn't know.
He said it in the chat, so
that's when I saw I got in the go
yeah.
for that. Yeah.
But it's it's going to be good. It's going to be a very cool new direction for the scene, and I'm very proud of and excited for Quiz. Haven't started working on that set yet. But I'm probably gonna put together like a oh Skelly, you'd love it. I'm gonna put like a Wave and Witch House combination together. Yeah, you'll like that. 20 minutes. Was trying to throw together a set over the weekend, just like a chill synth set, but that didn't go well. But anyways, yeah. So some great things coming up in the live stream. Y'all remember I play live shows too. Book me. I travel a lot further than I should.
So when is Roche Fest again?
Roche Fest 2 is, I believe he said October 19. Let's double check that. Yep, October 19. Vaporwave is November 9th, and then Vaporwave 2 is November 16. So it's gonna be a really exciting month. That's all in the same 30 days.
Fun. I wish I could go to that. That sounds fun.
Well, they're all online. Well,
I thought it was a live thing.
Asterisk. Awesome. Yep, Vaporwave Live. So anyways,
I can go to it then. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Philly is Philly is just too far away to drive to, but we'll figure something out. But anyways, yeah. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We had Van Paugam tonight, a renowned, world famous city pop DJ, an authority on the matter, and Vapor Critic. So we really appreciate you giving us your valuable time. Thanks for letting us pick your brain.
Thank you, man.
Learned a lot of good things about you. I feel like your opinions are very, very interesting. People in the chat, thank you for being so engaged. Old-timers and newcomers alike, don't forget to hit that follow, jump in our Discord, check out our Spotify playlist. That's what I forgot to mention earlier. Check out our Spotify playlist. We got a lot of carefully curated playlists from previous guests. And then again, feel free to donate. I mean, this stuff, we don't make money on it, but we do need to upgrade our equipment. We do need to pay the people that make the art for us. I didn't make this. That was Crystal Eternal, and we paid her, I think, like handsomely. So, anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget, we'll be.
Appreciate you guys.
Oh, thank you, man. Y'all check out Van Paugam's writing and mixes if you can find him, or just go see him mix live in Chicago. And then, of course, meet us or check us out on YouTube. We'll have this up on YouTube very soon, and then on podcasting services shortly thereafter. And in 2 weeks, that's 8 p.m. Eastern on October 7th, we're bringing on Jumper Kimmins. Visualist Jumper Kimmins. Been blowing up working with Utopia District, My Pet Flamingo, and Roche Corp, and it's been his time for a minute. Also, before we end the night, we're going to be doing a community vote. I haven't put this on socials yet, but we're going to be doing a community vote for our 10th episode. You decide who we're going to bring on the show. So, thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. Thank you, Van. Have an awesome night.